Near the corner of L and 28th Streets in Sacramento used to stand a statue or monument to John Sutter. The statue was removed on June 15th, 2020. Now, it wasn't an old statue. It was actually installed in 1987 in the lead up to what would be the 150th anniversary of Sutter's landing to this area, which was observed in 1989. This statue is where that bench is now. While the statue or monument was never on our park grounds, it didn't mean another monument didn't already exist here. Of course, I'm talking about Sutter's Fort as a whole. On April 26, 1893, Sutter's Fort was dedicated as a pioneer monument by the Fraternal Order and early historic preservation group, the Native Sons of the Golden West. The fort didn't look at the time the way that it does today. This dedication was when the fort was in the middle of being reconstructed and looked like this. This dedication, however, cemented the location not only in the memory of John Sutter, but also as a memorial for those who came to California before and during the gold rush, often referred to as pioneers. It was an occasion that romanticized pioneer times and was the start of making the fort as a museum to perpetuate pioneer life before the city of Sacramento. With the completion of the reconstruction in March 1895, Sutter's Fort is one of the oldest state museums in California and the oldest restored or reconstructed forts in the American West. Since the inception to reconstruct the fort, it has been managed by the state of California and a part of California State Parks since 1947. However, for over 100 years, the vision of this historic site as a monument to John Sutter and Euro-American pioneers was dominant. Anyone who studies California history knows that that dominance is narrow and overlooks a great deal of the story of this site, and it is not inclusive nor accurate. Don't get me wrong, Sutter's Fort was the end point on the California Trail. Almost all people coming to California by wagon like this in the early to mid 1840s had this place as their destination, including the Donner Party. This place played a key role in the Mexican-era Rancho period, the Bear Flag Revolt, and the Mexican-American War. It is this place that will accelerate California statehood when James Marshall will find gold 40 miles from here on January 24th, 1848 at Sutter's Mill, leading to the California Gold Rush. If this is a pioneer monument, who is being left out of the story? When John Sutter arrived here in August 1839, his landing party consisted of himself, 10 Hawaiians. John Sutter went to Hawaii before coming to California, 3 sailors, and a large bulldog. He will claim this area of the Sacramento Valley as his and call it Nueva Helvetia, meaning New Switzerland. And in 1841 will acquire legal title to this area from the Mexican government in the form of an almost 50,000 acre land grant. This area that we know of as Sacramento today was originally called Nisem Pewanon, and it is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Nisenan and Miwok native people. At least 30 villages inhabited this region. Some of the villages in this direct area would be the Pisuni and the Kadima villages. And it's these villages that will actually build Sutter's Fort. And it's the local native population that will make up at least 80% of the workforce at any point in the 1840s. Of course, that work here in the 1840s by the native population was coerced and was done through fear and intimidation. Sutter's Fort would not have existed in the 1840s if it wasn't for the local native population, and the fort as a California state park would not exist today if it wasn't for the efforts to try to save this incredibly historic site in the 1890s. Sutter's Fort today as a museum is a bit different from what it was not only in 1895, but also from what the fort was 12 years ago when I first started working here. This was indeed a destination and refuge for weary travelers at the end of an 2,000-mile trail to California in the 1840s by wagon. But this place changed the environmental landscape of the Sacramento Valley and changed the lives of California native people. This was a site of colonization and displacement that bears the historical weight of not only what happened here physically in the 1840s, but also what will transpire here in California after this site was abandoned in late 1849. It was 133 years ago on this day that this site, half finished, was decided that this place was going to become a museum. A museum where half the story was often left out for over a century. Having Sutter's Fort exist today is more important than ever because this is the physical space where we as interpreters and historians can examine this complicated site and be a laboratory for learning where the public can come and seek to gain a more inclusive, complex, and accurate picture of California history, and where we can strive to tell that full story.